So I thought I would basically tell you about my experience for when I had my hand surgery. It's still pretty fresh, it's quite raised, but for those that don't live in Australia, I thought it would just be a little bit interesting to sort of get a gist of what I went through when I broke my arm and I had to get surgery and how that overall experience is. I suppose even for those that are here in Australia, if you ever get into such a pickle, you may be able to take something away from this. I don't know. But so basically, I stacked it with my bicycle. Ended up breaking my arm. I didn't know that I broke my arm. So the unfortunate thing was I was about 10 kilometers into my ride when I stacked it, and basically I had to go back and ride back. Couldn't use my arm, couldn't touch anything. It was just extraordinarily painful. Went to my doctors, basically just the doctors said go to the emergency, went to the emergency, and they said that you have a broken arm or broken hand. After that, they basically patched me up into some semi-cast and said in a week or so you'll go to the outpatients area of the hospital to get checked out and see whether or not you need surgery. So this is where this particular story stems from, because I think I've sort of explained in a previous video what happened all up until I got to this stage. But a week later, I rock up into an outpatients area. Now, what the outpatients area basically is, if you've gone to an emergency or something along those lines, they've got a clinic inside the hospital that you go and visit for basically all of your outpatient care. So what ended up happening, I went to the clinic from the time that I went in to the time that I came out, it was about 2.5 hours, and that includes all the waiting time and so forth. So I came and I didn't know that it was going to be my surgeon at the time, but basically he looked at my hand and he said my finger is a couple of millimeters shorter than it should be, and it's pointing, basically it's twisted a fair bit, and obviously hearing that news, I was like, what the hell is going on here? And I did everything that I was meant to do. So he said, look, just the way that your bone broke, unfortunately, you might need a plate or some screws. We'll see what happens when we open it up. I didn't really care. All I wanted to do is to make sure that it gets better soon. So that's really all I wanted to know, how quickly that was actually going to happen. So that might have been probably about a Wednesday, 7 days exactly after I fell off the bike. He saw it and he said, oh, how long has it been? I said, oh, it's been 7 days and a day. And he said, look, we need to operate within the next 7 days. Otherwise, if it's after 2 weeks, the bone fuses together, then we need to cut it up and, cut the bone up to align it and all that sort of stuff. So if you break your bone or anything along those lines, apparently it's a lot quicker and better and easier to operate it within those 2 weeks. So moving forward a day, so the next day might have even been the same evening. That's my washing machine going off in the background. But going basically in the same day or in the evening, or might have been the next day in the morning, I can't remember. I got a text message from the hospital saying you've been booked in for surgery on Friday. So that was pretty exciting. I thought, Friday is sort of, it was only 2 days after I met the surgeon, which I didn't even know it was going to be my surgeon until I rocked up on Friday morning. Surprisingly, very, very smooth. So I just rocked up to the hospital. I think my appointment was at 6:50 a.m. and I was the first person to be operated on. So as luck would have it, I was there first, and I think from the time that I was admitted in, which was 7 o'clock, let's say, till the surgery actually happened was about an hour and a half. So the surgery itself wasn't that long, but obviously all the preparations and so forth take a little bit of time. It just happened to be that day I was also very, very sick. Like I was coughing, I had phlegm in my chest, in my throat, and I just wasn't feeling very well. But it doesn't look like it really affected anything anyway, except for the fact when I woke up from the surgery. So the surgery went well. They did everything that they were meant to do. I saw the surgeon obviously just before they were going to put me to sleep, he said, oh, how's everything going? They did some last checks. They drew on my arm to make sure that they didn't operate on the wrong one. They put an arrow down to the parts that they were meant to be operating on, and they were really concerned about allergies. I noticed that every time I saw someone else, they would constantly ask me, are you allergic to anything? So I'm assuming allergy is a big thing with medicine in particular, so I didn't know. But I don't think I was allergic to anything per se. So, obviously constantly I would be saying, no, I'm not allergic to anything. After that, they basically put me to sleep. That process was a bit weird. It felt like I was sort of fine, and all of a sudden, you just feel pins and needles at the back of your neck, and then in almost like you're through your whole head, and within, I don't know, a second, you're basically knocked out. And I didn't actually see anything or anyone after that, and it was just pretty painless. So I woke up and I was in some sort of a recovery ward after that. I didn't see my surgeon after that. I didn't see pretty much anyone. And once I woke up, I thought I was feeling pretty good. Even the phlegm in my chest almost disappeared for some reason. And I felt really, really good when I woke up, the first maybe 15 minutes, half an hour. And then after that, I started feeling really bad. When I say really bad, like not only was my hand a little bit numb and painful, but I sort of felt like I was going to throw up. And maybe because I tried to move too quickly, I'm not too sure. But because I also wasn't allowed to drink fluids and all of that sort of stuff, I felt like I was a little bit dehydrated. Now, when they moved me from one ward to the other, which is basically some outpatients area where family can visit, and my wife came there with my kid, they actually sort of disconnected the drip, which I think was really helping when I first woke up to get me hydrated. And I think I only used maybe a quarter of the drip when they disconnected it. And I wish they had that going on for longer, because obviously they just threw it away after that anyway. And I was just in that other ward for a while. And I think that would have definitely helped, because I felt like I was really, really dehydrated. So after all of that, I sort of like, after I woke up and I saw my son and so forth and so forth, I was really, really good. I got up a little bit too quickly, I think. And then while my wife went to the chemist to buy all the things that I needed to get, to get better, and some painkillers and so forth, I started walking. Now that was a mistake, because I shouldn't have, once you have a general anesthetic, which basically puts you to sleep, you shouldn't really be trying to do anything for maybe half an hour to an hour just to sort of get your orientation back and whatever else. And it didn't help that I was obviously sick as well. So that was really annoying. And then I had to go back to bed for another 2.5, almost 3 hours I spent at the hospital trying to sleep it off and trying to get that nauseous sort of feeling away. And had I probably not got up as quickly, I would have gone home pretty much within about 3-4 hours from coming in. But I ended up staying extra 2.5, almost 3 hours, because I did get nausea, and I did, my world was spinning essentially. As soon as I would get up from the bed, the world would be spinning, and I felt like basically just vomiting all the time. So until that all went away, they gave me some pill that you put underneath your tongue. I think it's sort of the same pill that they give to some cancer patients that don't hold their food down really well. So it just helps hold the food, and it prevents that nauseous feeling. I had one of those, and after about half an hour, 45 minutes after that, I felt fine. I came home. Obviously, all the painkillers that they've given me in the hospital when they were operating and stuff like that was wearing off. So the hand was becoming a little bit more in pain. But yeah, I just kept on sort of, I suppose, hanging in there, and I didn't really have any pain relief all up until late that evening. But once I came home, I actually ended up unfortunately throwing up once I came home. I didn't know that, well, not that I didn't know, I did know, but I shouldn't have done it. When I came home, I felt so hungry because I didn't eat from the day before, that I had a massive sandwich, like a chicken schnitzel sandwich or something. And you shouldn't have a big meal all at once. What you should be doing is having a small amount of food, but very frequently, to allow your stomach to be able to process it. So after, I sort of emptied my guts out, so to say, which was pretty bloody disgusting if you ask me, I felt really good. Well, as a matter of fact, really good from someone that's actually gone under general anesthetic. And the next day, I felt a lot better. Obviously, my hand, this is now Thursday, this is going to be 7 days after the surgery. My hand still has pains, and I've been given a lot of hand therapy to do because the tendons need to stretch behind the scars of the operation, and they need to stretch over the screws that have been put in my bones to hold the bone together and all that sort of stuff. So it needs to basically go back to its normal self. So if you imagine, this is your fist, I can really make a really good fist, and the pinky here should be quite lower than all these other knuckles and all these other fingers. But what happens is my pinkies with the broken one is like this, because the tendon here is actually not as flexible anymore for whatever reason, but it basically still needs to stretch to be able to go through all the scar that they've cut through. So they've cut the hand pretty much all the way through to be able to screw the bones together and align them and all that sort of stuff. So I'm sort of battling against that at the moment. It's not, it's not terrible, but it is a bit annoying, the fact that, you sort of have to, I suppose, do these exercises even though they hurt. So I've got another appointment on the 2nd, I believe, for hand therapy, and then I'm going to see how everything's going. And the goal from here onwards really is just to get as much strength back in the hand as possible. They say within the first 6 weeks, the bone will recover to about 40 to 50%, and then 3 to 4 months, it'll recover to its full 100%. So I just have to minimize the use of that hand, but still use it enough so that you have the feeling of, you don't lose the feeling of your hand, and you don't lose the strength of your hand. But about 8 to 10 times a day, I have to do these exercises to make sure that the hand gets strengthened, but you can't overuse it. You basically have to do the exercises without actually using your hand for anything else, because there's a risk of the screws getting undone, and if that happens, then they'll have to do another surgery to screw the bone back together and potentially put some plates in this time as well, and I don't want that. So I'm trying to not bump it anywhere, trying to basically not use it at all, just to make sure that it heals enough so that all of these screws that I have in there bond to the bone really well, and the bone itself bonds to itself really well, because when it was broken, it was basically in 2 pieces, and there were separate pieces floating around. It wasn't just a fracture, it was actually a complete break. So at the moment, yeah, it's going really well, and I can't really complain. That's why I haven't really even been on the computer, because typing with one hand I never thought that it would be so hard as it was. Hi, Snoopy. So this is my doggy Snoopy. She had a shower last night, so she smells really nice, and she's about 12 years old now. I don't know, how long do these small dogs live for? I wish that she lives for another 10, 15 years with us. She's a really good dog, and we're such good friends, aren't we? Are we such good friends? Yeah. She's just the most beautifulest girl. Anyway, so I'm not planning to do too much. Having the camera on a tripod like this is sort of perfect. I don't really need to do anything special, and you'll notice that I'm not really editing these videos, because I can't stay on the computer, for more than half an hour to an hour. It actually, if I do any of that sort of stuff, it just seems to, 1, give me a headache, and 2, for whatever reason, I don't know. But 2, it really tires my hand out, and because I can't put the left hand down properly, I can't really rest it, so I've got another protective thing that goes over this. I've just taken it off because I've had a shower, but it goes over this, and every time you put your hand down, it actually hurts. So I sort of have to have it slinged up or on the side or something along those lines, where try not to use it too much, and just let the sort of that area heal as much as possible. And yeah, so really that was my sort of process in getting surgery. As far as the costs are concerned, I paid a total of, drum roll, $10 for this whole surgery. So from basically the very first moment that I went to the GP with my broken hand to the emergency, then to an outpatient's appointment where they basically did another check of the hand after they've put it in plaster, to the surgery, and then everything after the surgery. The only thing that I paid for is this plastic bit that goes on here, and that's apparently elective. So they've given it to me because it makes my life a little bit easier. It distributes the force when I put my hand down between the whole hand, rather than if I was to put it down and it just, sort of, you can feel the bones here, but that plastic thing just distributes the force. It's not really necessary per se, but it makes life so much more comfortable. And at night, the way that I sleep is I put my pillow there, and you sort of have to have it in the air for a little while because I'm trying to get this swelling down to get some knuckles back. As you can tell, I don't actually have any knuckles here. They're just basically swollen. And on this side I do, and on that side it's still very, very swollen, and that's why it hurts so much as well. So as soon as the swelling goes down to a large degree, the pain will also go away. So I think my experience has actually been, apart from the fact that I broke my hand, which is pretty crap if you ask me, but the overall experience has been absolutely fantastic. I just can't say enough good things about the people that have looked after me in the hospital, how dedicated the people are. And I had my surgery at Dandenong Hospital, just in case anyone's wondering, how professional the people are there, how smooth everything was actually going. I love the SMS system. I love the fact that you go in, you have an appointment, do whatever you need to do, and they just tell you the time that you're in, next. And it makes things a lot more efficient. I know at some places they'll ask you, do you want an appointment on this date, on this time, blah, 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 blah. It's just so much simpler and quicker and easier. I know things need to get fixed, and then it just goes on. And there was no time wasting. I mean, yeah, of course, like I had to come there, and, at times I had to wait 1.5 to 2 hours to, on my appointments. But there's a reason for that, you are in a public hospital, and they do have quite a lot of people that they're seeing. But even considering everything, it's actually to spend, a day and a half all up, I think, let's say 2 days at the hospital, from basically breaking your hand to getting it completely fixed, is fantastic. You really can't beat that. And yeah, just in case anyone's wondering what the experience is like in a hospital in Australia, for you guys that live somewhere else in the world, I don't know. Where do you live, and what's your experience? Have you had a good experience? Have you had a bad experience? What would you rate the experience that I've had? I don't know, like in comparison to where you live. Maybe some Scandinavian countries might have a lot better experience, but in all honesty, what I've gone through, and I suppose the damage that I had to my hand, the fact that they've fixed it, and the fact that they've fixed it so quickly, in my opinion, it's pretty quick, and just the amount of professionalism, it's just amazing. And I just like to thank all the staff at the Dandenong Hospital that have looked after me. It's absolutely beautiful, and considering what's been happening, I had a great time there. Anyway, well, up until next time, I'll see you. Bye.